So I've shown you a few felting videos. I'm going to felt a rug today, and I'm going to do it fairly quickly just to show you a few tips and tricks for doing that. I'm going to be making a small round rug. Now with a rug, you can't lay it out the same way you lay out any other small object because it is so large. So what we do is we lay it out as we go. To do that, I'm going to overlap the fibers as I go. So right now, I have spokes that are going around here. The next thing I'm going to do is create spirals on top of these spokes as I build the spokes out. So as I start to build out on this rug, you can see that I have spirals or concentric circles, and then I overlap that with my spokes. So I'm doing the crisscross method, but it's happening as I build the rug. Rather than doing one layer at a time, I'm doing those layers as I build the rug. So I now have the rug all laid out using concentric circles and spokes, and I've overlapped this quite a bit. And what I'm going to do is just check for thin spots. There's a thin spot right there. So I'm going to look and I'm going to feel, a little hard to listen here, but you can feel how thin or when there's an indent in the wool. And so you want to double check and make sure that your concentric circles and your spokes make a good cohesive covering. Check for the thickness of your rug. So I've checked for thin spots, and notice I've put a design on this rug. The design on this rug is pre-felted pieces that I'm laying on top of the wool, and I cut out the shapes I wanted. I wanted a sharper shape than just mixing the wool together and creating any sort of marbling effect. Also, as I wet down this rug, I'm going to roll this around and wrap the edges of that rug so that I get a good blunt edge. Thirdly, what I'm going to use to wet down this rug is not the normal wet down technique. I'm going to use a spray bottle to wet down this rug, because when I spray down the rug, it doesn't wet it as much and I have more control over what the wool is doing. So the first thing I'm going to do is wet down the edges. I usually do that. I'm going to spray this right here, and then as it gets wet down, I'm going to roll this up over itself and pat it into a blunt edge. I've already spread soap all the way around the edges before I've started to spray. So I just about have my edges all wet down. I have used a tiny bit of water in a cup to be able to mold those edges. But one of the reasons why we use a spray bottle on a rug is that we can't pour off the dirty water the way we did in a tray with some other smaller project. So if we wet it down too much and it becomes too sloppy and the fibers float, we lose control of this rug. It takes a lot of patience to wet it down this way, but it helps you maintain control of the rug. So I have this rug all wet down now. I've used a spray bottle and small cups to wet it down, so I'm not wetting it down too quickly and I'm not getting too much water on it, because I can't pour off the extra water here like I would have if I were doing a smaller project. From time to time, I'm going to put a little soap on my hands rather than add more soap to the rug, because I don't want it as soapy as when I make a smaller project. This has taken hours to do. You've seen it fairly quickly, but just to wet down this wool has taken at least an hour. It takes a great deal of patience to make sure that these fibers don't move and don't go where they want to go. So I patted this for a good hour or maybe two, lost track. And now I'm rubbing it. Now when you rub this rug, you don't want to go to town on it. You just want to start with some small jiggles on this rug, just to make sure it's felting. This is thicker than most felted pieces because it's a rug. I made it thicker. And so you want to start really slowly rubbing and then eventually rub on these pieces that you've placed on there, so they should start sticking. And then one of the ways to check and see if it's really felting well enough to really start working it is if you can lift it up. And then sometimes I'll start palming it a little bit, so rubbing on both sides of that to make sure it's felted. One of the things to be careful about is that the rug, because it's so big, may have some spots that are farther ahead than other spots. So be careful as you start to rub and on it that you're not moving those fibers where you may have missed a spot and not patted enough or not rubbed enough or something. So I got to the point where my rug was cohesive enough that I could move it. It's not put together enough that I can get too rough with it, but it is one solid piece of felt. So I laid plastic down on top of it and I rolled it up and then I covered it with the tarp. And now what I'm doing is just sitting here and using my feet to step on it. And that will help felt the underside of the rug and what's inside the rug and get it a little tighter. So there's still a lot of felting to do on this. It's thick and it's big. So felting a rug usually takes me more than a day. I just don't have the patience to sit with it the whole day. But doing this helps to more efficiently use my energy. I'm hitting now more than one layer with the press. I usually roll this rug up into plastic when I feel that it's cohesive enough to hold the shape that I want it to hold. And then I just press and press, put on a movie and press, and I'll show it to you when I unroll it. So as I start to unroll this, I'm going to rub as I start to unroll, and I can rub fairly firmly now. It's getting more and more firm so that I can rub fairly firmly. Just doing the rolling helps shorten the process. Around the edges, I'm going to start to make sure that I've worked those edges so I have some nice, smooth edges there. After I finished rubbing, I rolled it back up again without the plastic. And then I put it in the shower and rinsed out the soap and dirty water. Then I rolled it back up again and squeezed it to get as much water out of it as I could. After it was partially dry, I put it in the dryer. Now be careful about doing this. If your rug is not cohesive enough, you'll destroy your rug. If your rug is too wet, you'll destroy your dryer. So you want to be really cautious about doing this. You can do this without the dryer. It's a bit of a shortcut to put it in the dryer. Lay it out, let it dry, and you have a rug. Thanks for watching.